Good evening, everyone, and welcome. I'm Joe Abraham with ESPN Radio Winchester, and I would like to thank you for joining us for tonight's Franklin County Commissioner District 1 Seat A Candidate Forum. Whether you are listening on ESPN Radio Winchester or watching online or joining us on the smartphone app, we appreciate you taking the time to become more informed as a voter. And as far as local government is concerned, these decisions affect us every day, from county finances and public safety to roads, infrastructure, schools, and planning for Franklin County's future. Tonight's forum is an opportunity for voters to hear directly from the candidates seeking to represent District 1 on the Franklin County Commission. And our goal here tonight is simple: to provide a fair, informative, and respectful discussion of the issues so that voters can make an informed decision when they head to the polls. Joining us this evening are David Eldridge and Stanley Bean. Gentlemen, thank you very much for being here and for your willingness to participate in tonight's discussion.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Before we begin, I'd like to briefly explain tonight's format. We have already done a coin toss to determine which candidate will begin the forum, and that winner of the coin toss was Stanley Bean, which means that Stanley will deliver his opening statement first and answer the first moderator question. After that, the order of responses will alternate throughout the evening to ensure that each of you has an equal opportunity to answer first. Each moderator question will follow the same format. The first candidate will have up to 2 minutes to respond. The second candidate will have 2 minutes for his response, and both candidates will then have up to 30 seconds for clarification or rebuttal, should they choose to use it. Following the moderator questions, each candidate will have the opportunity to ask one previously submitted and approved question of his opponent. I have reviewed both of these, and they have both been approved. The candidate being questioned will have up to 2 minutes to answer. The candidate asking the question will have 1 minute for a response, and the original candidate will have 30 seconds thereafter for any clarification that might be needed. Each candidate will also have an opening statement and a closing statement, and David will ask the first candidate question, and Stanley, you will give your closing statement first, and Stanley will give his second, as well as decided by the coin toss. Again, these candidate submitted questions were reviewed to ensure that they relate to the office being sought and maintain a respectful and professional tone. I ask our candidates to direct their remarks to me as moderator unless responding during a designated rebuttal period. Personal attacks and interruptions will not be permitted, and time limits will be enforced equally to ensure fairness to both candidates. All right. So to get things started, once again, Mr. Stanley Bean, you will give your opening statement first, and then you will be followed by Mr. David Eldridge. We'll start with you, Stanley. Go for it.
Thank you, Joe, and thank you, WCDT, for allowing us to do this debate. And it is important to give our people in District 1 an opportunity to hear both sides of a story. And a lot of our answers probably going to be very similar, I think, tonight. But I think they will also be able to tell there is a difference between the two candidates. My name is Stanley Bean, as he said. I've had the privilege of living in Franklin County my entire life. This is my hometown, where I raised a family, attended church, worked, went to school, and have built some strong relationships. If elected, I will bring experience, common sense, and a commitment to listening before making important decisions that are in the best interest for all the people of Franklin County. You know, my dad here in Franklin County saw to it that I had a job from the time I was 14 years old every summer. And I had the opportunity to not only work for the city, the county, and the state highway departments, which gave me an opportunity to see the roads and visit people and see the way things were going on here in Franklin County. You'd be surprised of all the things you can learn the summer that I worked on the garbage truck. And so I've had some really strange experiences and some great experiences here in Franklin County in my work. And it's where I learned humility as well. being able to go around to the city of Winchester and just being able to see what people, how people live and what some of the challenges are in the city. I was actually one of the first people hired here in the Winchester Recreation Department by Wayne Knuckles. He hired me the very first year the Recreation Department started. And I've always, kind of had that as a soft spot in my heart, especially for Wayne Knuckles, a great guy who taught me a lot in life. So that's it for me. I hope to bring out a lot of interesting comments by both of us here tonight.
Thank you. David.
Yes, sir, Joe. Hey, I like Stanley. I just appreciate this opportunity. Those folks that know me know that I am a huge advocate for open and transparent communications. But it's really, really hard to get out and talk to 5,000 people in our district. So this is a good forum. I think it's the first time I've been able to participate in this in all my years of serving as a county commissioner, but I really look forward to it. Like Stanley, I was raised in this community, attended public schools in this community, lived on a little 5-acre tract right outside of Winchester. Like a lot of young boys, I spent a lot of time in fence rows with the dog hunting snakes and roaming through the woods and the hills, riding bicycles and just being a boy. But what that taught me was these what I call small town morals and ethics. And my parents were I would call them tough love. They loved myself and the two brothers, but they expected us to work hard and amount to something. So early on in life, I started working as a teenager. Some of you may remember one of the first jobs I had was delivering milk to the front door with Avalon Dairies. That goes way back, but those were great times. Been a commissioner for 16 years. I'm looking for my 5th term. I really enjoyed it and enjoyed the experiences and feel like I've got a lot of experience still to bring to the position. A couple of things that guide my decisions I just wanted to touch on. I'm a conservative representative. I believe in conservative financial management. I want to preserve the traditional values that we know in our community. I want limited government intervention. The less, the better. Long-term value versus short-term gratification. I see too many decisions based on emotions in the short term that just don't pay off in the long term. And last but not least, value-based investment, investing in the future and our kids and our future of this community. So that's roughly where I sit, Joe, and I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you both. High quality responses right off the bat to start with. Now we're going to start with David. Actually, Stanley, on the first question. Stanley, if elected, what would be your 3 highest priorities as a county commissioner, and why should those issues take priority over the county's other needs?
Well, my first priority is financial responsibility. Franklin County families have been able to live within their budget, so the Franklin County government should have to live within their budget. Every dollar should be spent wisely with transparency. Every penny we spend belongs to our taxpayers, first of all. It's in their pocket, and so we're taking it out of their pocket every time we do a pay rate or a tax increase. We have a large number of seniors in Franklin County who obviously have a hard time making by, so we need to have financial responsibility, number one. Secondly, I want to make sure we're investing in the services people depend on every day. The roads, the bridges, emergency medical services, fire protection, law enforcement, public safety. All these things must be funded properly because they are very important to everybody's way of life. And these are all core responsibilities of the county commission. Third, manage growth responsibly. Franklin County is growing, and that's a good thing if it's done correctly. We need to improve infrastructure, protect property rights, preserve farmland, and make sure new developments continue or contribute to their cost. And of course, a big part for me is education. Education has to be a high priority as well, because education actually is a part of all 3 of my first 3 priorities: financial responsibility, investing in service, and managing growth responsibly. These are my top priorities because they are the foundation of a strong county government. Government can't do everything as we have to focus on, so we have to focus on the basic things and do them well. It's kind of like coaching. When I was coaching, In football, we did the basics, and if you do the basics correctly, things will seem they always fall in place. So I always relied heavily on teaching basic skills, and we need to learn from that with the county government.
All right. David, same question for you now. If elected, what would your 3 highest priorities as a county commissioner be, and why should those issues take priority over the county's other needs?
Well, Joe, my top priority would be the education. And the reason is we're facing a challenge that I haven't seen in 16 years. Education is always right at the top of the list as far as the priorities for the county, because our children are our future. But the education is even more important right now because we are facing a financial challenge that is unprecedented. We have lost 1,200 students in the last 15 years. And because of that, we're losing state revenue, which is based on enrollment, to the pace of $9 million each and every year. So this challenge is just, it's huge. And we've got to manage that in the right way. We can't go out and increase taxes by 25% in order to make up this loss. So we've got to handle it in a more responsible way. We got to reduce some costs where we can, particularly in the overhead, and preserve the schools. We have to fund the schools as our primary priority. The second one that I'll touch on right now is public safety. That's the reason you have a government, to educate the kids and to protect the well-being of our citizens. So our ambulance service, our sheriff's department, our emergency management, consolidated communications, our rural fire, all of those have to be funded properly in order to save lives. And last but not least, managing growth. We have grown a lot over the last few years, but quite frankly, I think our focus was on growth at whatever cost. And I think we're getting to a point where we've got to figure out where we want to be when we grow up. Do we want to be a Bell Buckle, or we want to be Murfreesboro? So I think we've got to have a plan going forward that helps us define what we want to be 10, 15, 20 years from now. So to me, that's the 3 highest priorities going into this next commission session.
All right. I guess going back to you, Stanley, do you want to respond?
Just a little bit on the loss of students, and I'm really close to that because being the director of schools for 5 years. But a lot of people think we're losing kids. They're just dropping out of school and leaving and going to other communities, and that's not necessarily the case. A lot of it has to do with students are just not enrolling in our schools. A few years ago, at the beginning of the school year and midterm, we had kids coming here by the groves, but now those kids just do not come at those times of the year like they used to.
Okay, and David, would you like to respond?
Yeah, very much so. We don't know the reasons why the enrollment's dropping as much as it is. We can speculate. I speculate that there's not as many kids in our community, but we also know that homeschooling and private school and transfers are pulling a lot of our students. But here's the bottom line. The money is gone, no matter why they're leaving. So we have to respond to that. We cannot turn our head to it. We cannot hope that it gets better. We've got to manage the change or we will suffer.
All right, this next question, we'll start with you, David. Under what circumstances, if any, would you vote for an increase in the county property tax rate or another county tax?
Yeah, it's a good question. I know we've had candidates in the commission before and actually sitting commissioners who had made promises that I will never vote for a tax increase. Well, let me tell you how this really works. We don't wake up at the end of a year and put together a budget and decide on that day do we increase taxes. Everything we do during the year by increasing the expenses, it's like a death from 1,000 cuts. Every time we increase expenses, we're making a bill that we've got to pay down the road. It's like the 2 middle schools when we built those. We were borrowing some $48 million. Now, I did not support the 2 middle schools. I supported the one school concept because of the fact that we had so many students leaving our community, our school system. But regardless whether I supported it or not, when it came time for budget time, we had to pay the bill. And that required a tax increase. So, yes, I voted for that tax increase because there was no other choice. We had taken on a $3 million a year liability of principal and interest payments, and we had to pay that bill. So I didn't support the expense in that case, but I did have to support the tax increase because you got to pay your bills. So there are circumstances where even though you might not support the expense growth, then at the end, you've still got to pay the bill. One thing is, I got a note here, though. We've done a great job, I believe, and I feel like I've been a part of that, being on the finance committee. We've gone 7 years and only have one tax increase of around 6%. During that time, the cost of living went up over 30%. So we've been able to manage our cost really well in this. By the way, that was the heaviest cost of living increase period since the early 1980s. Now, do we want to see a tax increase? No. But that was an extraordinary situation, and we limited the tax increase to one over 7 years and did not have a tax increase this coming year in 27. And I'd go out on a limb and say 28's looking pretty good, but a little close.
All right. Stanley.
Yes, taxes and revenues. I believe that government first should earn the trust of the public. And we do this by being more transparent in why we're taxing and what the tax money is going for. Living costs and taxes are already a burden for many citizens here. So with that being said, very simply, tax increases should be a last resort, not a first option. Before a tax increase, I would like to see every department reviewed, unnecessary spending eliminated, and as existing taxes used efficiently as possible. In the case of a true emergency, only would that be an opportunity for us to do a quick tax increase. But before doing that, we would have to be very transparent again. I would like to go back to the underfunded as far as the school system is concerned. They are underfunded, but back in 2022, County Commission led by a motion by Mr. Eldridge to lower the maintenance of effort to give money to the school system, lowered the amount of money. So that opportunity right there has kind of made it a little bit harder for school systems when we lost that revenue. So I do think that, we've got to be real careful about those kind of things. And they lowered the maintenance of effort because the school system enrollment had gone down, and they had every right to do that. But that's something that very few school counties do. And when I called the comptroller to get information about lowering the maintenance of effort, he made it very clear that he did not know of hardly any county commissions that had ever done that, and wanted to know why you would do that. And why would you lower your funding for your schools when the state has already lowered the amount of money, as Mr. Eldridge said, of $9 million a year, and then to place on top of that, lowering the maintenance of effort by the county, that took a chunk from the school system. And of course, money that paid for programs and many things that were needed in our school system.
All right. David, would you like to respond?
Well, as usual, Mr. Bean is getting the facts all messed up. He is talking only about property tax. The school system also gets the majority of sales tax, and it was going up during the period he was superintendent of schools by close to $800,000 a year. I went back and looked for the 6 years he was superintendent of schools. The local tax appropriations of the school system went up from $14.7 million in his first year to $19.4 million in his last year. Went up $4.7 million a year over his 6 years. Not a single year did the local tax not go up.
All right. Stanley, would you like to respond?
The funding, I could show where the funding over those 6 years was very minimal. Not minimal, but it was a couple $1 million. But compared to the county general, went up more than the schools. And the county general was half of the budget of the school system. So I think during those years, we actually did pretty good as far as budgeting money.
All right. This one will start with you, Stanley. School funding and oversight. The school system represents a significant portion of Franklin County's budget. What responsibility does a county commissioner have to examine and question the school district's budget? And how would you balance financial oversight with the need to support students, teachers, and school employees?
Well, education is by far the largest investment that Franklin County makes, and our children deserve every opportunity to be successful. With this being said, the county commission does not manage the schools. There are a few county commissioners who would like to manage the schools, but that's the school board's responsibility. But we have the duty to review the school budget as accountability and transparent as a county commissioner, make sure all budget decisions are tied to student success and opportunities. My approach has always been this: not to be for or against any budget until you've had a chance to determine the need, the outcome, and is it measurable? In other words, if you want to do something, purchase something within the school system, like Chromebooks, at the end of the year or 2 years, to be able to show that that has been a success within the school system. The best approach is partnership, not conflict. An example would be working with the teacher. We talk about working with the teachers. The FCEA, they feel very threatened a lot of times by county commission and other groups of people who just do not want to help them get through the pay raises that they may be searching for, or opportunities, insurance, things that they can ask for. So, I think that school funding is very important. I think everyone knows that that is a top priority because it is so much money going to the school system.
All right. David.
Yeah, I don't disagree with Stanley at all. It's our biggest funding item. It's $59 million of our $119 million budget. But my concern was, as we go through this decline in enrollment and the loss in state funds, how was that managed? That is the critical question. And during Mr. Bean's tenure as 6 years as director of schools, he saw that this loss was at that time close to $5-6 million a year. So his answer was to continue to grow the central staff and the overhead, while the teacher's salary fell behind by about $3,000 based against the area school systems. So we were losing some of our best teachers and staff because they simply weren't being paid competitive to the other school systems. But yet we continued to staff the central office and grow the central office at a pace faster than we were attributing money to the schools. Equipment was being sacrificed and underfunded at the school level. Simple equipment was being requisitioned and turned down. The teachers having to do more donations and fundraisers to buy the basic supplies for their classrooms. So, bottom line, during that period, we protected the central staff and the overhead while the schools were going underfunded. And Mr. Bean, every single year, even though, like I said earlier, the local taxes went up by $4.7 million a year over a 6-year period and went up every single year, his response was to ask for more tax money every single year instead of taking the necessary actions to rebalance his overhead to the lower enrollment. That's what should have happened. And to this day, we still have that problem facing us.
Okay, so you each have the 30 seconds to respond. We're going to start with you, Stanley. I'm going to ask the question one more time just to clarify. The school system represents a significant portion of Franklin County's budget. What responsibility does a county commissioner have to examine and question the school district's budget? And how would you balance financial oversight with the need to support students, teachers, and school employees? And Stanley, you got 30 seconds on this.
Okay, well, I have right here from 2017 to 2022, the school general expenditure went from $44 million to $46 million. So $2 million, Mr. Eldridge, not what you were saying. And the county general went from 16 plus million to 20 million. So they went up almost 4 or 5 million, where the school system in the same amount of time, a much larger entity, went up only 2 million. Now that's coming from the Franklin County. That's not mine. I didn't make that up.
Okay.
And like you did with the staffing
right.
has gone down. Actually, we have proof of that.
All right. David, you've got 35 seconds.
Yeah, fine. I wasn't talking about expenses, Stanley. Expenses might have been whatever they were. I was talking about revenue. Revenue is what drives the tax rate. And if the revenue had nothing to do with what your expenses were. As far as staffing, yeah, the number of teachers has gone down. As the number of students has gone down, they've taken the brunt of the hit. along with the other cost or funding opportunities at the school level. So, I still hold with what I said. The bottom line was the answer to the problem was simply more money, more taxes, and not reducing cost.
All right. So this is the individual follow-up now. And David, we're going to start with you. And now I love the fact that we've led into this because I know that you guys really want to talk about the school district and the school board budget and things. So, Mr. Eldridge, some people have described your approach toward the school district and its budget as being overly critical. How do you respond to that criticism? And where do you believe that the line should be drawn between responsible oversight and criticism that becomes counterproductive?
Well, I take offense to the word criticism. I believe that we need to manage costs across the local government, whether that be in the sheriff's office or whether that be in the school system. I'm elected by the representatives in District 1, and for that matter, I represent the whole county. And my obligation is to look for ways to improve the cost effectiveness. We can't lose 1,200 students and continue to have the overhead for 6,000. We can't lose 1,200 students and continue to pump money into the overhead and let the school at the classroom level go underfunded. So all I'm bringing forward is information that I get off of the State of Education website. I get out of the budget. This is just data that I show them to support where the problem is. Every time I bring it forward, Mr. Bean gets mad and defensive. It's time for him to, as he was superintendent and now going to become a commissioner, it's time to quit turning your head to the problem and making some hard decisions. Be a leader and not a follower. And this situation calls for some very tough decisions, or we're going to end up seeing a tax rate that's out the roof.
Okay. Now, you'll both get a opportunity to respond here in just a moment, but the individual follow-up for you, Stanley, is the other side of the coin. Some people have described you, Mr. Bean, as having your approach towards the school district and its budget being not critical enough. So how do you respond to that criticism? And how would you assure taxpayers that you would provide independent and meaningful oversight?
Well, I appreciate that concern because taxpayers do expect commissioners to ask the tough questions and do the tough things with all departments, not just the school system. However, I do disagree. I believe that oversight isn't measured by how loud someone is or how often they criticize. It's measured by asking thought-out questions and listening to all stakeholders, listening to officials, listening to the taxpayers, then making the decisions on the facts, not based on just some whim or data that may or may not be correct. Also, criticism alone does not make a good county commissioner. Remember, I'm running for county commissioner. I'm not running for school board. Our schools deserve commissioners who are independent thinkers, not rubber stamps, and definitely not perpetual critics. I think that we should have a variety of boards overseeing the school system. I think the commissioners should be more involved with the school system. But staffing has lowered at the central office. Only 1 year did it go up, and that was back when COVID, and they allowed us to hire some extra staff members. But the evidence is there that staffing has gone down every year, along with teachers, and a lot of it is part of lack of funding. We're not able to fund teachers. We've had teachers going to other places, but we have cut funding. When I was there, we cut funding, or we didn't cut funding, we cut staff members, and we had to cut teachers because of lack of funding. And I think that trend has happened in the last couple of years as I've been out as well.
Okay. David, would you like to use your 2 minutes to respond?
Well, I want to make sure that I am not misunderstood. The top priority in our school system are our schools. When I visit the schools, I'm telling you, I am just so impressed with the family orientation around our schools, how much the teachers and the staff care about the students, that they produce a comfort zone for these students to come to. They are the front line. They are the heart and soul of our school system. And they should be our number one funding priority, not back services, not overhead services that are in the background that don't really even, that the students and the parents never even see. Any organization that loses near 25% of its sales, in our case, students, has to adjust the overhead. And there's been nothing done there that I know of, unless it might have been a position here or there, as Mr. Bean says. I don't know. But I do know that the schools are being underfunded. And I look now, if I go to the website, I can count 40 people in the central. Now, these are good people. They're true professionals, and they've got a place in the school system. But do we need that big of a central office while our schools are being underfunded? So as far as being a critic, I'm going to stand up and every time for my constituents and try to make sure that we're producing a school system we can be proud of and that'll stay viable. We're in a death spiral if we don't make some changes. And some of those changes comes down to culture in the schools, behavior of our students. What are driving our students away? We need to ask that question and be forthright in asking it, and be aggressive and proactive in solving the problem. We can't just lay back and have hope as a plan. And that's what it's been for several years, hoping things turn around. Hope I don't have to make these kind of cuts. We just got to take more proactive action.
All right, Stanley, you get 2 minutes.
I don't know what hoping and making cuts are, but I challenge anyone to check with the board and see if there's not been staff reductions over the last 10 years. As I said, the only time there was a staff increase was the year of COVID when we got some federal funds. And after that, federal funds ran out. I think one or two of them may have stayed in important roles. But overall, I think I would estimate about 40 positions of staff positions have been lost in the last 10 or 15 years. And so, are they important? So I guess Mr. Edwards feels like the staff is not important at the central office. I don't know how you can run a school system if you don't have staff, but they are very important. They're not as important as teachers, maybe. Teachers are the number one important ones. And by the way, teachers this year, for the first time, reached, I think, the minimum wage of what the state is asking all of our school system to pay. So we can make excuses and blame me if you want to, or blame whoever you want to, but the county commission or whoever, we have not paid our teachers until now that we had to. The state fund mandated this year that we make the lowest paying teacher, I think, $50,000, and we finally got to that. And if we hadn't had that mandate, I doubt that we would have gotten there this year. But, the schools are very touchy to me. Mr. Eldridge thinks I get mad, and I don't get mad. I get a little disgruntled at some of the things he says, because I know a lot of things he says about schools are not true. He one time called our schools pathetic, and that.
Oh, now wait a minute. That's going too far.
All right.
I know that's not against the rules, but he's gone to lying, and I'm not going to
You
sit
said our
up with
test
that.
scores were
That's
pathetic.
an out and out lie.
All
You said our school scores were
and
pathetic.
it's not the first time you've lied, and it won't be the last time I'm satisfied.
Let's move on to the next question, gentlemen. All right. So managing growth. We're going to start with Stanley on this one. Stanley, how should Franklin County manage residential and commercial growth while protecting existing taxpayers, infrastructure, property rights, agriculture land, and the rural character that makes our community so great?
Well, growth is coming in Franklin County, whether we like it or not. The question is how well we can manage that growth. We must protect property rights, preserve our farmland. And by doing this, we need to talk to our farmers to find out what exactly their concerns are, and to make sure that infrastructure keeps pace with development as well is very important to the growth. Existing taxpayers shouldn't have to pay for growth not properly planned. Coordinate with municipalities as needed. I don't know, when I was as a county commissioner, we did very little as county commissioners reaching out to Deckard and Estill Springs and Winchester and trying to work together with growth. I don't know if that's changed over the last 5 or 6 years, but it was not done very well over those few years. I support growth that strengthens our economy and protects the quality of life that people enjoy. In today's world, we have a real threat, and that threat is losing our land to overseas and local people from other counties, other states, who are trying to take opportunity of our beautiful land here in Franklin County. And when we lose this beautiful land that we must protect, once it's gone, it's gone. You read about this all the time in your bigger cities where people from overseas are buying land and buildings and turning them into things that we don't want here in Franklin County. And remember, when it's gone for good. Right now, industrial growth seems to be at a standstill. I think we need to maybe revisit where we are on our industrial growth and try to get things moving forward on our industries as well, because that's jobs created for our residents and helps everyone.
All right. David, how should Franklin County manage residential and commercial growth while protecting existing taxpayers, infrastructure, property rights, agriculture land, and the rural character of Franklin County?
Yeah, we've talked about this earlier, and it is a heck of a challenge. I think we've over the last many years, the demeanor has been growth at whatever cost, because growth is good. It increases the tax base, increases taxes, increases the sales tax, and all of those are good things. But we're beginning to stretch our infrastructure, and we're just using up a lot of the farmland. And the question becomes, do we need a redirection? One thing I've noticed, the various cities within our county have their own growth plan, and the county has their growth plan, and they're not coordinated. So what I'm proposing is that we put together a comprehensive county-wide plan for growth and development. Now, back to retail and commercial. Actually, the cities do most of the commercial development, like retail establishments, because just about all of the retail is within the city limits. What the county concentrates on is industrial growth, and we have a strong program that within the county now that we're working hard to try to increase industrial movements into our area, and we're trying to target those higher paying jobs like aerospace jobs. We're trying to take advantage of the Space Force move to Huntsville and the corridor between Nashville, Chattanooga, and Huntsville, in drawing more industrial here. One big thing that goes with growth, like I say, we need a comprehensive plan that focuses on where we want to be 10 or 15, 20 years from now. But one thing about industrial growth is we need to really emphasize our TCAT and improve the TCAT school, enlarge it, increase it to where it's putting more students out. That'll feed the industrial growth in the area.
All right. Stanley, you get 30 seconds to respond.
I agree with everything Mr. Eldridge said on that. I think, we've got a lot to do here in Franklin County, a lot of things that need to happen. Everything he said, and I think everything that I said are, very important parts of growth. And the growth is, it's where it is. It's what it is. And it's very important. And it's just how we manage it. If we can manage it well, it's a great thing. If we don't manage it well, it can backfire in a hurry. And I think you just have to read the paper and watch the news and find a lot of instances where people have let things get out of hand.
All right. And David?
No, I don't have anything else to say. I think we've covered that subject.
All right. The county budget, we'll start with David on this one. When county departments, David Eldridge again, alongside Stanley Bean, when county departments request additional funding, what standards or process would you use to determine whether or not that request is justified?
Well, that's a really good question, and a lot of it just comes with experience. I've dealt with all the departments now for many years. I've been on the finance committee probably 15 of the 16 years I've been a commissioner, so I've got a lot of history with each one, and I kind of know where to ask the right questions. But in general, the people on the finance committee do the first cut at the budget with each of the departments, and there's got to be a willingness to challenge new requests. And when I get a new request, or the finance committee does, one of the things I look at, is it a recurring expense or is it a one-time expense? Obviously, recurring is the gift that keeps on giving. It just keeps costing year and year in and year out, and usually escalates with inflation. A one-time cost item, if you can suffer it right here, it doesn't have the long-term effect. Now, with that, you then have to look further into what is the value versus the cost, and weigh the cost benefit study of each new expense item. We put a lot of faith in our elected officials, the sheriff, the department heads, to do the right thing, to come forward with legitimate concerns and legitimate needs. And generally they do. That's why we've not had one tax increase in 7 years. They've done a great job in fighting off all this inflation. But some of the other data that I use when I look at that, I do a lot of comparison of our budget with other counties by line item. I know, for example, and I'll just use the county clerk's office. I know what the county clerk's office is costing in 5 or 6 other counties around our region. And I can compare that, and it gives me a feeling of where maybe the trouble spots are that need to be questioned more. I do that with all the departments. I've been doing that for years. I do it with the school budget. I look at the closest counties, and Marshall County is one of those that's very near to our population, and it's very comparable.
Okay. You got just over 2 minutes, Stanley.
Okay. As far as the county budget, each year, all of the departments get to come in and give their budget to the county commission and explain why and what they want to add to their budget. And I think the first thing we have to ask or question is when they ask for new things is this a need or a want? And when we determine that it is a need, then we go to the next step. And does it improve services for our students, or is it just something that we do just to spend more money? Has the department used its current budget responsibly? In the last couple of years, have they used their money properly? Have they underspent? Have they overspent? Are they using their budget properly? Are there also other ways, more efficient ways to accomplish the same goals that a department might be trying to reach? And also, are results measurable? In education, that's a big thing, is to be able to measure your results. And it's very important for transparency, because if you can show the people in the community where things in a department are working, then they're much more likely to be okay if you did have to have a tax increase, or in general, just to be happy with the county government. Every request deserves a fair hearing from the department heads, but every budgeted dollar should also have to justify itself.
All right. 30 seconds to respond, David.
Really not much more to say. I'll just say this again. When requests come into the finance committee when we're going through the budget, we just look at it with an eye on making sure it's bringing value to the customer, and making sure our citizens, and making sure that we're getting the best bang for our buck on every expenditure. Mr. Bean is right. There's a difference between a need and a want, and that becomes very clear when we're reviewing the request from the department head.
Okay. And Stanley, you've got 30 seconds.
Well, the county budget is a big thing, and I know I don't know exactly whether they finalized everything for this year's budget or not, but this time of the year is kind of the time of year where they, some years you're finished and some years is dragging on if you're trying to find more revenue to meet the budget. But it is a big part of the county, and it's the one thing probably gets most criticism of the county commission is the budget. A lot of people don't pay attention to some of the things that are more important, but the budget is always a big thing for people in the community.
All right. The next question revolves around public safety and emergency services. And Stanley, we're going to start with you on this one. How should the county prioritize funding for the sheriff's department, emergency medical services, volunteer fire departments, emergency management, and other public safety needs?
Well, of course, public safety was one of my top priorities. And, the way I think about public safety is just let it slip up on you one time and someone gets injured or killed because you've had some neglect in public safety or emergency services, and you really have put yourself in a really bad situation. One of our highest responsibilities, and it's not always a glamorous, but a county with poor public health is setting itself up for difficulties for its citizens, for both present and future growth. People, when they move into a community, one of the things they want to know is about your public health and, about your emergency services and public safety. That's what people want to know. I support all essential services like the sheriff's department, the EMS, volunteer fire department, and emergency management. They all deserve our utmost respect, and they need our support. At the same time, every department, even those, should demonstrate taxpayer money is being used efficiently. Supporting public safety also means resources are directed where they'll have the greatest impact. In other words, when we're doing things with public safety, we're not trying to do things in a community or way out in the country where they're not as impactful as they could be, maybe closer to town. And the numbers of people that the sheriff doesn't need to have 20 people patrolling in North Franklin County at one time, and none in Franklin County, the lower Franklin County. I'm actually blessed to have a daughter who's a nurse and a son who is an EMT and a firefighter. So I hear their concerns quite often about the things that they have to put up with in their profession.
All right. And David, you've got 2 minutes on the same question. How should the county prioritize funding for the Sheriff's Department, emergency medical services, volunteer fire departments, emergency management, and other public safety needs?
Yeah, Joe, I appreciate the question. As I mentioned in the very first question, public safety's got to be at the very top of the list along with education on the priorities. But I want to talk about two specific items within the public safety. One is our rural fire. We've depended on our volunteer rural fire departments for many, many years, and they've done a great job. But a lot of times in our state government and federal government, they don't necessarily do the things that are best support these little local fire departments. One thing that's happening is the regulations that's being placed on these volunteers, particularly for training, is growing and growing. And they're having to spend much more of their own money and own time to go to these training courses. And quite frankly, it's getting harder and harder to get volunteers. If those fail, there will be no choice but to have a county-wide fire department, which, okay, that may be what it comes to, but that won't be inexpensive. And it'll be a big change that we'll have to plan and implement. It's not on the very near horizon, but I fear that it's laying out there. The other thing is the ambulance service. We have a private contractor that runs our ambulances. But quite honestly, we have 4 ambulances on duty at all times, but some get out of the county making runs for the hospital. It's right on the hairy edge. So we're looking right now. We had discussions today on how we can minimize that risk, improve that service, make sure that we're prepared to serve the community. So that's an area of emphasis over the next year or so.
All right. Stanley, 30 seconds to respond.
No response.
David?
No, I'm fine.
All right. The next question, we will start with you, David. What do you believe are Franklin County's most pressing infrastructure needs? How should the county determine which roads, facilities, utilities, solid waste services, or other infrastructure projects receive funding first?
Governments do a pretty lousy job at long-range planning, but we've really worked on that the last year or two in the county, and we've got a much better plan in place than what we had a few years back. And that's important to make sure you're hitting the right things. But just a couple of things that's happened in the last year that we've tried to improve on. We're in the middle of building a new animal control facility out on George Fraley Parkway near the Judicial Center. That is $1.5 million to $2 million, and we were lucky enough to get a fairly generous donation from a local citizen to help on that. We're also putting a lot of emphasis now on the Southern Middle Tennessee Pavilion. Quite frankly, it got a little run down over the years, and so we're putting money away each year to do some required maintenance. And in fact, this year, we're going to put $300,000 into fixing the roof. The high school windows were put in backwards. So a year or so back, we had to spend quite a bit of money to replace all those windows. The courthouse windows were very, very, and I'll put one more, very old. And the air coming around them was tremendous. So we just replaced all the windows in the courthouse. The annex roof, we just replaced it. So we've done quite a bit. Carpenter Memorial just got a new roof. We've done quite a bit, but the needs are still there, and we're going to have to address. From the education point of view, education department, we have a long list of needs that were given to us through an engineering analysis performed by the train company. As I remember, it was near $10 million worth of investments that need to be made for HVAC systems and building and roofs. So that's laying out there that needs to be done. Roads, another important feature. The gas tax money has grown stagnant. So we're going to have to look at ways to generate some revenue so we can get the roads back in great shape. They're okay, but I think over the next few years, that's going to be a challenge. Solid waste is another one. We're going to have to look at the incinerator idea.
Okay. I'll re-ask the question to you, Stanley. What do you believe are Franklin County's most pressing infrastructure needs, and how should the county determine which roads, facilities, utilities, solid waste services, or other infrastructure projects receive funding first?
Well, I do agree that, first of all, the committees, need to be more active in long-range planning committee, and some of those committees need to step up and do more things for the county, and hopefully that will help as well. Our biggest infrastructure challenge does include roads, bridges, and planning for continued growth as well, not only just doing the things, but planning for growth. Also, a big thing is a broadband project, which we've began here in Franklin County, which at some point hopefully will bring broadband to just about everywhere in the county. I think it's supposed to get everywhere, but just a very small section of the county. All the projects with infrastructure should make sure that they are based on safety, needs, and long-term value. Are we doing things infrastructure-wise that create long-term value, or are they just things that are going to go by the wayside within the next 2 or 3 years? Also, the number of students or number of residents that will be served. How many residents will be served with any type of infrastructure, priorities, and needs? And a big part that I don't think was mentioned is preventive maintenance. If you're not maintaining their infrastructure, you're really just having to come back later and try to, and we've been bad about that here in Franklin County, not taking care of some of the things that we need to take care of. And then you have to replace the entire road instead of keeping the roads like we should have been done in the first place. But preventive maintenance is a huge part of infrastructure.
Okay. David, I'm gonna restate kind of in a different way the question. You did a good job of listing some of the projects that have been done and that you guys are prioritizing, but the question specifically was more geared towards how should the county determine the priorities, as in terms of, what is your process of thinking when you're determining which ones go to the top of the list?
Well, I think Stanley mentioned there are committees within the county government, a Roads and Grounds Committee that reviews all of the requests from the department heads when they come in. And they look at it long term. And it's a matter of weighing risk versus payback and what can be deferred maybe a year or two, what cannot. What is the most immediate problem? And you have to look at the impact on the community when you look at these things. So they're not easy decisions. They're very tough decisions.
Okay. And Stanley, you've got 30 seconds if you'd like it.
No, I'm fine.
Okay. The next question, we'll start with you, Stanley. Economic development. What kind of economic development should Franklin County actively pursue?
Well, the type of economic development we should pursue would answer some questions. First of all, does it create good paying jobs? If we're bringing jobs in here that are not paying very well, then, what are we doing? Also, we should make sure that the development is giving diverse opportunities for people at all skill levels. If all we're bringing in here is lower level skills or higher level skills, then what about the people in the middle? We need to make sure that we can have economic development for all levels. And, I think I don't know that we've done a great job with economic development here in the last few years, but to even answer these questions. Does it support local citizens? Are we bringing in economic development that supports people, that is active? Do the people live here in the county? That's kind of always been a gripe of mine, is we have developments here in the county where we build industry when we do have industry, and they live in another community. It would be really nice if those people would live in this community. Do they fit our community values? And are they good neighbors? You want a good neighbor when you're talking about economic development, bringing people from another state or another country in here, how do they get along? And also how much does it expand our tax base? That's a big thing. Every time we bring an industry, that's one of the first things we need to ask ourselves is how is this going to be a positive effect on our tax base? And hopefully it will be a nice impact. And this also part of economic development that gets left out is supporting local businesses. You've got businesses for economic development that we really push to bring people in to cater to these people coming from outside. But what about their local people? Are we doing everything to help them develop to be the best they can be as well? And responsible economic growth benefits everyone. So,
All right. David, what kind of economic development should Franklin County actively pursue?
Well, like I said earlier, we got to separate out to some degree economic development. The retail development that we talk a lot about, new stores, new eating places. The cities basically handle that because it's all within the city limits. So what we are basically talking about from the county is industrial development. And I don't disagree with anything Mr. Bean says. We can't. We have to have development that touches or gives possibilities to all of our citizens. But let's make sure we understand. We really need to concentrate on the higher paying jobs. And again, I mentioned earlier, the Space Force move to Huntsville opens up just a lot of opportunities. And we're really trying to explore those. Those are very good paying jobs that we can take advantage of. But I'll touch back on the TCAT. I think that was one of the best things we ever invested money in getting in here to this community. And we now have most people don't know, that was our TCAT here in Franklin County was operated under the auspices of the Chevrolet campus. And it was more or less a remote campus from the Chevrolet main office. We now have a director that's just been assigned, a local person, Mr. Dave Van Buskirk, is going to be the director of the local TCAT. And he's already making plans to expand that, to go after grants. That right there, we got to increase the labor market. That pulls companies in. It's a chicken and the egg type of thing. You got to have workers. You got to have trained workers. That'll pull businesses in.
All right, Stanley, would you like to use your 30 seconds to
yes,
respond?
and I'm proud to say that I was actually the county commissioner that made the motion to bring the TCAT to pay for the county to commit to the TCAT with Ms. Hopkins. And so I was really happy to be able to do that. And it has been a big thing here in the county. I disagree a little bit with Mr. Eldridge on the higher paying jobs. Sure, we've got to have higher paying jobs, but we also need paying jobs for these people that are struggling just to make it day to day. Some people, they just need jobs, and to have an industry in here that can provide, what type of labor that they can, just so that they can have jobs. I think that's important also.
Okay. And David?
No, I think we've covered that subject.
Okay. All right. A commissioner, this one is going to be, we're going to start with, now I'm going back and forth here. That one was David, and Stanley was first. So now back to David. You're going to be first again on this one. Lost count here. All right. So a commissioner represents the residents of an individual district, but also must make decisions affecting the entire county. How would you handle a situation where the wishes of many of the District 1 residents may conflict with what you believe is the best long-term interest of Franklin County?
Joe, you've just caught in a nutshell how how difficult the county commissioner's job is. The constituents have a set of facts that they look at on a decision that's being considered by the commission. It may not necessarily be all of the facts. I may have information that they don't have. That gets back to the communications. We need to communicate better and better. But bottom line is, there could be liability issues that surrounding an issue that the citizens just cannot understand or can't know about. So I think the bottom line is a commissioner has to make the decision that's in the best interest of all the citizens. And sometimes that may mean taking a position that's counter to a group within his own district. But what he owes those people is open and honest explanation of what's happening. That's one reason I started the Partnering with Government series that I'm doing every couple of months to cover a different section of the government, what the issues are today, what the problems are, what the things they need to know about their local government. And the other part of that is it provides me input from them on what's important for them. So it is a tough call. I've been in that position before where I may be facing some liability issues that I have to protect the citizens from that. But bottom line is you have to do what's right for the citizens as a whole.
All right, I'll re-ask the question, Stanley, just because it's kind of a long one. A commissioner represents the residents of an individual district but must also make decisions affecting the entire county. How would you handle a situation where the wishes of many District 1 residents might conflict with what you believe is in the best long-term interests of Franklin County?
Well, first, you have to listen to the facts and make sure you draw your facts from the people in the communities and talking to the people that are in your community, the District 1, and then getting ideas from the other districts. We've had those. I know Mr. Eldridge remembers the rock quarry. That was a real tough one because there were people in different communities that wanted that and different communities did not. But my first responsibility is always going to be with my district. Because there's 16 county commissioners, each one represents a district, and they fight for their district, and I would fight for my district, District 1, along with Seat A, Seat B. So unless my findings were outweighed, and I would always represent my district first. Either way, I must be able to justify my decision without a doubt, and transparency is how you do that. The decision you make has got to be based on facts and people instead of data that may be incorrect. It's kind of like an analogy of coaching. You take care of the people that you want to take care of first. And in football, you take care of the linemen. They're not the glamour people, but you take care of your offensive linemen and everything else falls in place. So in county commission, you take care of your constituents. And if you take care of them and you're fair and honest with them, everything will fall in place for you.
Okay, and David, would you like to?
Yeah, Joe. This is it's tough to answer because there are hundreds and thousands of different circumstances that would go into affecting that decision, and so we're trying to answer a very generic question without knowing the circumstances, and quite frankly, it's impossible. So I try to represent my constituents first as well, but will I sink the ship in order to satisfy a small group of people? No. We can't afford to do that. So it's going to depend on the circumstance.
Okay. And Stanley?
And I agree. It is a very tough call. It's a tough decision. And it's hard to answer. If you gave an example,
right? Yeah.
I could probably answer. And I tried to give an example like the rock quarry.
Yeah.
That was a time when it was divided. And I don't even know if Mr. Edwards was on the first rock quarry discussion, but it came up and, you had people from your district trying to give you advice on it and people from other districts as well. So it was a tough call.
Well, I do appreciate you both giving, and to I think that's part of it from a voter standpoint is just understanding the process. Yep. And you two did a very good job of explaining that process. Both of you did. All right, so Stanley, the next question is for you, and this is the last moderator question, and it is about the 5-year vision. So where would you like Franklin County to be 5 years from now? And what I would like you to try and do in the short time allotted is to describe some of your vision, maybe identify 2 to 3 ways that voters can use to determine whether or not the county is actually moving in the right direction, moving in a positive direction.
Well, if I came back in 5 years, what I'd like to see or know about our county is, are we financially strong? Is the county commission taking care of the money? Are we safe? Are we growing? And pretty much my first priorities. Also, that our schools are on a strong foundation. Our schools have been through a lot of criticism. I'm the first to admit that. It's been going on for a while, but we're working at it. Our schools are not just laying back and allowing things to happen. Our schools are working very hard. Our teachers work hard to have scores, best test scores they can have. Principals, staff members, they all work very hard. So I'd like to see that continue and improve on our schools, make sure that they are giving the opportunity to students to be successful in not only life, but life after school. And, this is very important. In 5 years, we should ask ourselves, are we stronger, have better services, improved quality of life? If yes, then we're moving in the right direction. So ask yourself, I guess, 5 years ago to today, you feel safer in Franklin County? Do you feel like we're moving in the right direction? That's an individual decision and an individual choice. But these goals that we say are ongoing as well. 5-year plans are not a destination, but they're a journey that needs to be sustained by the county commission that is dedicated to work with all the departments and all of our citizens in a fair and decisive manner. And again, it's a destination. It's a journey. It's not you just don't get to one spot and stop. It's a journey. I think we definitely need to review our county commissioners' committees. I think Mr. Eldridge hit on that a little bit, and determine if they're outdated. I think all of the committees probably need to look at ourselves and say, is this a committee that's needed? Is it ineffective? Do we need to establish new ones to better serve our people of Franklin County? And I'd like to see us add citizens to some of these committees. Some of them have committees, but some don't, but I think that'd be helpful.
All right. And now, David, where would you like Franklin County to be 5 years from now? And if you can, in the time allotted, please describe your vision, identify maybe 2 to 3 ways that voters can use to determine whether or not the county's moving in the right direction.
Yeah, Joe, the first part of your question is relatively easy. The second part is difficult. But let me touch on the first part. The few things that I would see 5 years from now, if I came back and took a look, I want the education to be effective, our education system. Stable enrollment, stop the bleeding, financial stability for our education system, and have a healthy system, and academically be a high-performing system. The second thing, I want to see the growth be better managed. I want to see that comprehensive plan that I talked about earlier that really gives us firm and specific direction on how we grow in the future. I'd love to see that in place. I'd love to see new industry in here. And you're right, Mr. Bean, sure, we all want to see jobs for everybody, but quite frankly, we need to give opportunity for everybody to go to the right school, to get educated in the right techniques, and to get into these higher paying jobs. So I'm big on, I want to see the TCAT expanded, and I want to see new industry come in the area. Now, how do we allow the citizen, or what ways do the citizens have of measuring this? My gosh, that is a tough one. People are busy. They're out trying to earn a living. They're trying to raise their family. They don't even know who their commissioners are. And I understand that. That's why they depend on people like me as commissioner to fight for their rights, to take up the issues and aggressively go after these things and try to improve them. But the only way I see fit, I'm trying to do that with my sessions to get people to come in, communicate. I'll say that 3 times. Inform them of what's going on. We got to figure out a way to get the populace more informed and more involved, and that way they'll know. They won't have to worry about reading tea leaves someplace. They'll know what's going on.
Okay, 30 seconds, Stanley, to respond.
I have no response.
Okay, David.
No, I'm good.
All right. So we are going to move on to the questions submitted by each of you. And David, we'll ask your question to Stanley first, as decided by the coin toss prior to starting the debate. And Stanley, I'm going to ask the question for David. It's been submitted to me. You're all right with that?
Yes.
Okay. Now, this is with a caveat at the beginning here. The focus of this question is the policy issue rather than the specific figures, okay? Franklin County schools have experienced an estimated decline of more than 1,200 students over roughly the past 15 years. That decline is estimated to have resulted in a substantial reduction in state funding, as much as possibly $9 million annually. Regardless of the precise figures, the school system faces the challenge of educating fewer students with less state revenue while maintaining many fixed operating costs. As a county commissioner, what approach would you support to address that challenge? Should the focus be on reducing expenditures, increasing the possibility of closing a school, or including the possibility of closing a school, increasing local revenue through raising taxes, a combination of those approaches, or do you have an alternative solution? Please explain.
Okay, it's a pretty long question, but I'll be glad to answer it. We have been experiencing a loss of students. Mr. Eldridge said himself, we don't know why. And so to try to address that in 5 years, I don't know, how he thought it was going to be addressed. But a big part of it is just because that students are not coming to school here in Franklin County. There is data that shows that the number of the households in Franklin County, students are smaller. Our children are smaller families. So those numbers are just not here in Franklin County. Now, that's whose fault is that? Now, as far as students that leave here, you can't make a student go to school here in Franklin County. If they choose to go somewhere else, that's their priority, their privilege. There is right around 1,000 students. I don't know the exact number of kids that are homeschooled. And a lot of those kids are making a big mistake by being homeschooled because the state, we need to go to the state if we want to try to increase enrollment. You ask, what can we do about it? We need to go to the state and tell them to stop this homeschooling, because homeschooling now, a person can homeschool a student with GED. And so we're going to have a population of students who are going to be very uneducated. And so we've got to make sure that students who are homeschooled by people who are qualified. The two-school idea, or how we're going to raise money, or closing schools. Well, I'm going to go back to the two-school. That was something that we did, and I stand by that. All of the school board wanted that except for one. Only one person did not support two schools. So that did not create it created a little bit of a burden. However, the amount of money we spent for the two schools was not that much more than what it would have been for one school. Closing school would be a very last option for us here in Franklin County. We have community schools, and I think the people respect and like to have the schools the way they are.
Okay. Now I'm going to allow David 1 minute, and then Stanley, you'll get the opportunity for closing thoughts on this question, 30 seconds.
Well, I could debate several things he said. One was the school board actually decided to build one school and voted 7-1 to build it. And Mr. Bean came in as the new director of school and completely turned that around. And the next thing you know, we have two. We have lost 1,200 students. That's equivalent to the combined enrollment of North, South, and North Lake. 3 total schools worth of students that are down. If we had have gained 1,200 students, we would have certainly looked at building 2 new schools. So I'm sorry. The last thing I'd like to do is close a school. That's terrible. It's a terrible emotional event. But it is one of the options that we have to look at. So, Mr. Bean did not answer the question. He simply told us why we've lost students. We've lost them. We've got to react to that. We've got to manage that change. We can't just wait and let it manage us. It's going to be tough decisions, but we've got to make them.
Okay. And Stanley, you've got 30 seconds.
There are a lot of things that went on when the schools determined to go from 1 school to 2 schools. David, you're not privy to a lot of information that you may want to be. But that was determined, as I said, the last vote on that was unanimous, or there may have been one school board member that voted to keep the 1 school. When I came in and I presented all the options, it totally turned in that direction. So, and I would just ask you, what school would you close? Because the schools, the 2 smallest schools are our most high achieving schools, Broadview and Sewanee. Now you're going to close one of those.
All right, gentlemen. All right. So, David, this is Stanley's question for you. You're going to have 2 minutes to respond, then David 1 minute, you'll have 2 minutes, and then Stanley will have 1 minute, and then David, you'll have 30 seconds, just like you did on the other one. So this is the question. There has been a proposed legislation in Tennessee, SB 624/HB 618, that would prohibit a person from holding one or holding more than one elected local government office. You currently serve as both a Winchester alderman and a Franklin County commissioner. If the interests of the city of Winchester and Franklin County were to conflict, which responsibility would take priority, and how can voters be confident your decision would remain independent in the best interest of all county taxpayers, not influenced by either office or by any individual? Additionally, how would you assure residents of the county's other municipalities and unincorporated areas that no city or community would receive preferential treatment? If possible, please explain or please provide an example of a time that you maybe have faced competing responsibilities and how you handled that situation. Did you get all that?
No.
Okay. Do you want me to repeat the question?
No, let me take a stab, and if I fail to answer a part of it, you can call me out. Yes, that bill was passed. It was passed after I was qualified to run in this election. So I am grandfathered through the term, this term if I win, and through the term I serve on the Winchester Council. Now, at the end of the Winchester Council term, which is 3 years out, I will have to make a judgment because I can't serve on both. Now, the good thing about being on both, I now represent about half the citizens of Winchester on both boards. So I'm able to give you double the amount of benefit of my experience. And, you know, I kind of take it personal because there's an insinuation in there that I would make a decision that was counter to the best interest of the citizens of Winchester, whether it be the county position or the city. I'm not going to do that. I have no agenda. I have no special interest group I'm trying to meet, unlike some other people. But I'm going to make the best decision I can for them. And I'm not going to put the county ahead of the city or the city ahead of the county. I'm going to put the citizens ahead of both. Simple, end of sentence.
Okay. And Stanley, you get 1 minute to respond.
Well, and you did not answer your question, David, about how if you had any conflicts and how you've handled it. Maybe there's been a conflict that has arisen, I don't know, between the county and the city, and how you handled that and decided to vote on one that affected the other. Also, Joe, you left out part. This bill was actually sponsored by Republican State Senator Richard Briggs. Do you agree with the senator, the Republican senator, or do you think he's off base?
You know, I could care less. It's not my place to question a bill going through the Congress. I will just abide by it. Now, have I had a conflict of interest? In my mind, no. I have not had a conflict of interest where I had conflict of interest means that I had something to gain from the decision I was making. And I have not had a conflict of interest on any decision I've made. As a matter of fact, luckily, I've been able to keep the taxes, no tax increase, both in Winchester and the county. And that pleases me immensely because that's in the best interest of the citizens. But I have not had any decision that made me, gave me any advantage. And that's what a conflict of interest is.
All right, gentlemen.
Did I get to respond to that?
Yes, you get
30 seconds.
I'll
Dave,
allow it.
You said I kept taxes. I assumed that there were other people involved in lowering the taxes. And the only thing I've heard of is that there was a situation where you voted to give money from the city to the county for water to something that you're a chairman of the board on the county, and you voted from a city position to give $150,000 for infrastructure to something that you're doing on the county.
Well, let me say this, Joe. Your rules up front were you would not have a personal attack. That right there is an attack on my integrity.
That was the question.
Oh, let me finish the sentence. That was an attack on my integrity that I made a decision that favored one entity over another. And I take that personal because I never will do that. Now, conflict of interest is defined as I have a vested interest in the outcome of that decision. I did not have a vested interest at all in the outcome of that decision. I felt like I weighed it. I felt like it was best for both sides, and I decided that way.
Okay. Gentlemen, I'll let that one go because I think it's good discussion. I think it's important for people to again hear both sides of the opinion from each of you. Now it is time for the closing statements here, And Stanley, you got to open first, so you will close first. You get 2 minutes.
And you mentioned you opened the gates, Dave. You mentioned me early in this. I have nowhere in my notes anything that mentioned you or anything you have done. But when you opened the gates, criticizing me and the school system, I think on the very first or second question, you've opened the gates, and I was not going to sit back and just let you talk about me. And I don't lie. I do not lie. Anything that I would say, I have someone who could verify it. And, my question is, you've been in for 16 years, and now you're all of a sudden coming up with all these ideas. Where were they for the last 16 years? Now, in my closing remarks, you can giggle all you want to.
Well,
and here we go. Twice he's interrupted me. I've not interrupted him. I've been truly blessed to spend my 71 years of life in Franklin County, living with my brothers, 5 brothers, my children. We all graduated from Franklin County High School. So my family has invested roots in this county. But the person that shaped me the most in my life was my mother. She taught us that your word matters and that your service to others matter. Those values I've tried to live by as a teacher, coach, administrator, director of schools, and county commissioner for 11 years. And those that knew my mother knows that she lived by those ethics. I want to support Franklin County. I support Franklin County. I'm born and raised here, as I said earlier. I would do anything to make our county better. And I make my decision in Franklin County, regardless who proposes anything, or because my responsibility is to the citizens, not politics, no special interest groups, no one else. And that's why I'm running as an independent. I am running as an independent in this election because I want my voice to be my voice. I don't want it to be someone else. I don't want to have to get on the phone and call someone and say, hey, how should I vote on this? I vote mine. I'm sure Mr. Eldridge will say the same thing. But I never make a decision based on self-glorification. Never. And I ask for your vote, and I'll bring those same values in every decision that I make on your behalf.
All right.
To the citizens of the District 1.
David, you've got 2 minutes.
Okay, Joe, I'm going to take advantage of that and touch back on another subject, the school situation. I don't want to be misunderstood. Our school system has some great people. In the central office, in the schools, I'm just always impressed with the school's environment. They work super hard. But the facts are the facts. We've lost 1,200 students. That is a major, major change. It's going to take major change to correct the situation. And, yes, by losing that many, we need to correct the situation. We need to make reductions across the board, overhead and in the school system. And that's all I'm proposing, that we do the right things to streamline our organization and rebalance it to this new level of employment. That's what any business would do. That's what we should do. Now, my commitments to the citizens. First of all, I'm going to represent the best interests of all citizens. I don't have a personal agenda. I don't have a special interest group that I'm trying to please. I'm going to represent everybody. I'm going to make the decision I think is best for the group. And if you talk to the people I've worked with over the years, I think you'll get that reaction from them. I accept responsibility for my decisions. I don't run from a situation. I don't run from a problem. I will make the decision I think is best for the next 15 to 20 years, not tomorrow. And I don't run from that accountability. I will aggressively address community issues. I will ensure open and transparent communications. If I'm reelected, I'll continue my town hall meetings and try to educate the public and get their input. I'll make informed decisions. I believe in data. I believe in getting the facts before you make a decision. The main thing, I will be a leader, not a follower. I'm not going to lay back and use hope as a plan. I'll read the facts and I'll promote the actions that we should take to make us better in the future.
All right. In closing, gentlemen, I just wanted to say thank you to both of you for coming out. I also would like to point out that I hold the two of you guys in the highest regard. I feel every time I listen to you guys speak, and I hope that people take advantage of watching these types of conversations and watching you guys communicate, because the wealth of knowledge from both of you is a tremendous thing. You're both a tremendous asset to this community, and I thank you both for your time. I appreciate you as well for tuning in. Again, this has been the debate between David Eldridge and Stanley Bean. They're asking for your vote for Franklin County Commissioner, District 1, Seat A. I am Joe Abraham. This is ESPN Radio Winchester.